Good evening, everyone, and welcome to EduTALK. EduTALK is a weekly virtual talk show created out of the need for a global learning community focused on topics in education that directly impact Caribbean nations and the diaspora nationals working across the globe. EduTALK features teachers, principals, business leaders, administrators, and dignitaries who share their expertise on topics facing education today with a common goal of moving education forward and our students upward. Welcome, everyone. I'm your host and I'm joined by my co-host. I'm Dr. Dwayne Dice and, of course, Dr. Miguel Barker. And we're joined by our special guest, Mr. Larkland Morley. And he's joining us from California. He is very much in tech. He is the technology leader at Google, and he's going to tell us a little bit more. So welcome, Larkland. And Miguel, what's happening? I haven't seen you in ages. How things?
Busy times. We're just experiencing the British spring.
Mm-hmm.
So the tulips are coming up, and it's fantastic on this side of the pond. I am excited to hear what Larkland has to share about the kind of projects that he's working on, and we see where we can find some connections and some synergy. So Larkland, welcome to the show as well from my behalf.
Thank you, Miguel.
Yeah. So Larkland, the show that we're looking at tonight is looking at AI systems and in general technology with AI. And the theme that I call it is what's the beef with AI, with artificial intelligence? What's the beef? Because a lot of us in the education system, we tend to start punching it around and treating it badly, saying it needs to go back where it comes from because it's going to damage us. But before we get into the theme, just give us a little bit about you, because we said that you're a technology leader at Google, but you also, in the past, you work at Facebook as well as project manager and so on. So, and tell us exactly where you're from in Jamaica, so people can, build this connection with you.
Okay, sure. So anyway, well, good to be here with you all. So I'm Larkland Morley. I actually am from Clarendon, as I mentioned to the panelists earlier. So I went to Veer Technical. So I actually studied computer science at Veer and electronics at Veer. Remember, O-levels back in the days and things. So I did that. In terms of education, went on to study computer engineering and business as well. I've actually done an MBA as well in that space. So that's kind of my background. I'm also a member of the British Computer Society. So I'm a chartered engineer. And one of the things I do on a regular basis, I actually interview applicants to become chartered engineer in the UK. Well, when I say the UK, it's actually worldwide, but most of them are the UK. So I have to get up early morning in California time to interview people there. I would say almost twice a month or so. So that kind of thing. So in terms of my work, I've always worked in technology. Luckily, my background from Veer. Back in the days, technology wasn't seen as that important. It was more like something in the background.
Yeah.
But I think obviously technology has transformed the world in the last, especially recently. In many things, right? The internet, video, like we're now doing videos online and stuff. That was, in fact, COVID kind of accelerated that as well, because now with COVID, people are forced to go online. So we see all of this trend with technology, right? So my work at Google, I work in the infrastructure team. So if you look at search and the AI and all that stuff, for us to enable that to users, we have to build very robust infrastructure across the world. And so part of my team is to build that infrastructure and make it reliable, make it fast. Because when I think about AI, for example, another thing I'll touch on before we go into the detail about AI is that for AI to work, it needs the systems to be, fast, high performance systems. I'm breaking it down in layman terms. You need high performance compute, you need fast networks, and you need, a lot of storage and stuff. So those things we have to build out and in an efficient way, because no matter how much money the company has, you're going to have limits in terms of resources. So you have to optimize resources as well. So you can't, you don't have unlimited budget.
Yeah.
So we build out infrastructure. So that's mainly what I do. And we have many projects, both in terms of building and protecting. For example, one of the projects we're working on is how to prevent people from interrupting internet traffic. So we're working on traffic, stuff like that. So there's a lot of research being done in that space. And, so we work with the academic community as well to look at new stuff, new challenges, and we bring those into the production network as well. So
your work is very, very important to all of us. Yeah, in the school.
Yes, definitely.
So Miguel is in England. He's a principal. He's leading school in England. So there's a connection there where you have some of his people that you're working with.
Yes.
What is the when we look at technology too, and I'm talking specifically about the school environment, because Google, we look at Google as a friend, with schools.
Yeah.
And especially a little before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, Google has been a very close friend of teachers. Can you give us an idea of, because we love Google Classroom and Google Suite and Google Docs and so on, and we use them to form a lot of collaborative work with teachers. What makes it possible so much that Google brought these things together, the platforms, and create this nice environment, online, virtual environment for everybody to become a part of it? What caused this to happen?
Okay, good question. So if we go back to the mission statement, so every company is built on a mission statement. The mission statement is to collect the world information and organize it, make it useful to people. And so education is one of that, right? Naturally, education is built on information. And so what Google does is that we build scale systems, and we, by virtue of building those scale systems, we bring down the cost of compute, or the cost per use, or the cost, per access. And by bringing down the cost per access, we realize that, there are many people in the world who are uneducated. And so if you can leverage those systems to reach those people, right? And so, for example, Google Classroom is not seen as a highly profitable product. It's seen as something that's as a social thing from Google, right? So basically, you want to build out that ecosystem of educated people so that you can have more professionals and more people that can develop the world, so to speak, right? So it's an important investment to invest in the social side of things, which allows society to grow and become prosperous in that sense of the word, Yeah.
Interesting. Marka, does that interest you? That it says that Google, based on its mission, is to, it seems like it's to give away some of the technology so that people are benefiting, but also they build connection with each other on a social level.
Yes, that's correct.
I think the thing to be cynical when it comes to essentially there's never anything for free, really. Nothing is for free, and the more and more we are being asked to acknowledge that nothing is for free. I think in the past that was not clearly part of the transaction. So we would say, for example, you get Google Classroom for free, but you didn't realize you were giving data in return. And these companies have very early strategically figured out that access to data was really, and when I say data, people's personal information was really the currency that was going to make the future, and so I suppose with that in, now we're a lot more aware of this, we're a lot more aware of this now and realize that you go on the sites now, you see cookies, these are stuff that would have been there before, but we never gave permission. But now we are asked to give permission.
Yes.
So, no. So I mean, we understand that, but I think certainly though, there's a lot that happens with Google that is beneficial to education, as Dice point out, and so that is something that could be applauded. You say you're working with people, professionals, to get them certified in terms of stuff like that. How did you end up in that particular kind of part of the field? How did you end up in that?
In terms of certifying people, you mean in terms of helping?
Yeah, like getting, like, what was the motivation that got you into that area, and how did it happen? Sometimes it's meeting someone, talking to someone, and then you get into a field. But how did it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so to answer your question, two parts. I would say I'm an educator in hiding because from I was going to high school, I've always been teaching my classmates and stuff, right? So I've always have an interest in developing people and stuff. So even at work in the past, I would do training, find out people have weaknesses and I would do training and stuff. So I became a member of the British Computer Society much earlier in my career. And in fact, I was a member of a branch in Ottawa. I used to live in Canada as well. And I was a member of the branch there. And in fact, the president at the time gave me the thing to do, what they call events. So I started doing events and stuff, presenting to, bringing experts to present to us and stuff. So I've always had this interest in helping people to grow. And so the BCS had this thing where they say, hey, if you want to be an assessor, they call it assessor, because I already was a chartered engineer. And they said, oh, if you want to help other chartered engineers or CIT, they also have a thing called CITP, Chartered IT Professional. So if you want to help people to get that, you could sign up and get the training, and then you can become part of that. So I volunteer for that. I'm very happy to do that. I'm very motivated to do it because, as I said, for our society to be better, for Jamaica or the Caribbean to be better, education is going to play a critical role. And not just education in the context of traditional education, but having the right skills to solve problems, right? So if you talk about AI or computing, you need to know how to apply it when, not just say you know it, right? You have to know how to apply it. So understanding how to help people to gain that kind of credential, really important to me as well.
So yeah, go ahead, Baka.
No, I'm just trying to. So you got educated. You went to VRTech in Jamaica.
Yes.
Where did the computer science come into the picture?
Because I actually started computer science at VIR, actually.
Yeah.
I did computer science at VIR. Yeah, and I did my degree in computer engineering as well. So that's kind of a build up on that. And then also
did you do that? Where did you do it? Where did you study that at UTech or?
No, I did it online actually. I did with a UK university, the University of London.
Okay.
University of London.
Okay.
I actually started working in Jamaica, and then I did my degree while working and stuff, and then
Yeah. Okay. So you did it as you were.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. No, the funny thing is, just to dig back, 23 years ago when I was getting into the University of the West Indies. And I may not know this story, but I applied to study mathematics. I had completed my A-levels and I'd gotten an A. And when I was signing up at you have to sign up for the courses that you want to do. And matriculation, not matriculation, registration, they call it.
Right.
And I remember the computer science team.
Yes. Yeah.
Was trying to find me to get me to sign up for computer science because math was really the qualification to go into computer science. That's math. You didn't do computer science. If you do math and you get an A, they want you. And in 1999, I turned down that opportunity.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I used to be very much
the reason why I turned it
down,
I didn't own a computer, you see, and I thought it would be a major problem studying computer science and not having a computer, So I was like, life would have worked itself out, and look where computer is right now,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, without a computer, I could not have been doing what we're doing right now for the nonprofit. Never. We couldn't do it. Yeah.
But back in the days, nobody knew a computer. Every computers were in the company. You have to go to a office to use it or something.
But nobody poor. Some people had, stuff. They had stuff that they could use. And computers weren't as popular, but people did have, the ones who could. Let me ask you something. We are now at a time where the conversation is not so much about the Googles and the search, but more around artificial intelligence. And even that you're someone at the forefront, what should we be mindful of as we embark in this new era?
Very good question, actually. Very, very intriguing question. So let me give you a context the way I would look at it, right? So AI has been around for years, right? I mean, if I go back and look at the history of it, it's been around maybe more than 50 years or so in terms of the research. But it has evolved. So there's two sides to it. There's what we call machine learning. Machine learning is where you have these specialized models, which can do, for example, I'll give you a very simple example, just to not get too complicated here. So you take a cat, identifying cats, for example. You can create a model to identify cats. So you're feeding data into that model. And so when you put a picture of a cat, it can say, oh, there's a cat, you know? So you can do different type of pictures, right? So it learns how to identify cats, right? Now, there's a concept called artificial general intelligence. What artificial general intelligence means is that it can do multiple tasks. Most AI tasks today are very specialized. You know, like, for example, on Netflix. I don't know if you use Netflix.
Yeah.
If you Netflix, when you watch shows, it actually remembers and it says, okay, it uses a very simple regression model to say, hey, people who watch this show would like this type of show. So it can track what people have been doing, that data that people have been watching before, and say, hey, you know, Dwayne like this kind of show, you know, based on this show, he would like this one and stuff. Same thing in Amazon. When you buy stuff on Amazon, it can recommend stuff, right? So those are kind of very specialized algorithms that can recommend things. So what the trend and what people are crazy about is this whole concept of artificial general intelligence, where you could potentially have a robot that has that very super intelligence that can actually do, you know, multiple things, right? It can identify a cat, it can identify humans, it can do all these different tasks, right? Now, what the implication is that I did a paper with somebody a few years ago, more than a few years, maybe about 3-4 years ago before COVID. And they were doing it for some thesis and stuff. So I look at it in terms of scenarios. There are three scenarios. Three scenarios. You have the doomsday scenario where the AI becomes so intelligent, it takes over the world and we become slave of the AI. The other scenario would be a case where it becomes utopic. If you think of Star Trek, you guys probably watch Star Trek in the days and stuff, where everything was automated and, you know, we live in a very, you know, prosperous society. You don't need money. Everything was done for you. So that's one scenario. But it's the third scenario, which is more hopefully realistic, is a case where you have better governance, better controls and stuff, where everything is done in a controlled manner. So where it doesn't get humans displaced and that kind of stuff. So that would be what you'd consider to be the ideal scenario, because the utopic scenario is good, but it's probably, you know, that's a wish list way down the road. But what you want is a case where you have good governance, you know, use AI complementary, especially in education, versus replacing teachers, but use it in a way that, you know, build us versus taking away or replacing, so to speak. Did that answer your question, Miguel?
I mean, you've begun to, I think the concerns, and you've given the three examples, the utopian example, the doomsday example, and the hybrid scenario, which gives us some kind of scope about how to think about it. But increasingly, we're seeing that we see the emergence of ChatGPT, and then we saw Bard from Google. You know, we see all these coming out, and then the big question is, maybe it's more doomsday than anything else. But you know, while these things are great, you know, are we sleepwalking into that doomsday? You know, our mobile phones, you said Netflix telling us what to watch, and so on. And for someone like you who's in that field, I just want to know what the kind of things that are happening, and as an educator, you know, what are the things that we need to be mindful of?
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll give you some tips around that. So let's talk about positive and negative, right? So that's a good way to look at it, right? So let's talk about the negative part. The negative part of it is that you could have actors, not necessarily AI itself, you know, but, you know, you could have companies or governments who use this AI for their own advantage to control people or to do negative things to citizens, right? So that's kind of you could call it a realistic possibility, you know, because you're going to have, you know, you can look at places like Russia and China where they are a little more willing to control their citizens. And we have seen examples where in China they use a lot of vision systems to, you know, to control and to watch what you do. And some of those can be positive because, you know, in places like the Caribbean, you definitely want more intelligence and criminal activities as well. But you can go too far where you control people to the point where if you say a certain word, police could pick you up the next day or right away, kind of thing. So you have those negative things that could happen. The other negative thing is in education, and let's focus on education, is that you could argue that you could replace a teacher, for example. So you could say you create like a holographic teacher with this ChatGPT-like capability, which could teach the students, right? So people could think that you have that total replacement where, teacher, you don't need people to create the content, but you probably don't need as much content creators, right? But in terms of delivering the education, you could just pretty much use like a hologram or an app that talks to the student, right? So those are some of the extreme. Now, on the
That sounds
positive
like
side,
a positive.
yeah, you think it's
That sounds like
positive?
a positive.
You think it's a positive? I mean, it depends on how it's done, right?
Well, I mean, there are many places in the world where you do not have the human capital to do that. So what
Yes,
wouldn't that solve some major problems rather than focusing on having a
yes,
person? There are places in the world that are quite dangerous and nobody wants to go there to work, but there are children present
yeah,
in those
yeah,
environments.
yeah.
There are
No,
many
so,
refugee camps that this would solve a massive problem. So it doesn't
yeah.
sound like a negative, but carry on anyway.
No. You get a point, and we'll come back to that later.
Mhm.
Make a note of that. We'll come back to it. So let's look at the positive side for the short term. In the short term, so in the short term, what we should do is look at these tools. And going back to what you're saying about reaching more people. So if you look at Jamaica or the Caribbean, they don't have the budget to address all the educational needs, right? So if you can put some of this in a compute system or in a compute way, then it's actually a positive thing for them in that sense, where it complements the teacher. So you're not necessarily replacing the teacher in this case. I want to make sure we say that clearly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're not replacing them. What we're doing is we're helping them now to reach the students. And the topic I want to bring up here is a thing called personalized education.
Mhm.
Just in my older life, I realized that, oh boy, back in the days when kids are dumb, we just set them dumb and send them go learn auto mechanic or
Mhm.
something. When in some ways they just need help to be able to master the maths better.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think technology can significantly help us to personalize education in a way that can make everybody win, without necessarily even replacing the teacher. Because what you're doing now is you're tracking how that student is learning. And that's what AI, the basic models in AI today can do that. They can say, hey, this student learned this way, so we're going to teach him this way, and stuff. So I think the short-term benefit to it is to really, help to personalize education, help those students who are slower in some areas, help, find out what they're good at and, feed them in the right direction. And that will help them to grow, in the long term, right? Because a lot of people leave Jamaica who are adults, leave the Caribbean as adults, never had a degree, not even finished high school, come to the US or UK and they, got their degree and even doctorate
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe the system was more tolerant of them, And so I think the AI or the technology in general can help in that context, right? The other thing it can help with very short term. If you use ChatGPT today, and you guys probably have played with it,
Mhm.
there's a lot of little things you can learn. For example, you can learn language. I think it's very good at learning languages.
Mhm.
So if you want to learn Spanish, for example, I've personally going from evidence I've gotten from other people that if you want to learn a language, it's one of the best tools, and it's pretty much free. So you can learn a new language with it. It's very good at summarizing. I was telling Dwayne earlier before we started that I used it to summarize something earlier, and it was really good, a really simple summary. So if you're a teacher, you can actually use it in your work as well and make your life easier, and plan out your lessons and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some good benefits you can extract. And maybe on Thursday we'll deep dive into that more in terms
Yeah.
of how you
Mhm.
those things. Yeah.
True. You mentioned some good points there, Larkland, about the personalizing education for individuals and also using it as a resource, using AI systems like ChatGPT as a resource for teachers.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like when we started off, we look at the perception of teachers or educators in general. Right now, there are several articles talking, negatively. They bash ChatGPT negatively in the education system. But what Barker, if we have sufficient time, we could even talk about this in length. We found that there are benefits from ChatGPT, even more, if you extend your previous answer, the benefits that you gave a while ago about ChatGPT and AI systems, we even gave a workshop on it recently, how ChatGPT can be used to enhance lesson planning and use as a resource in school. But there is still this idea, the one thing that I realize that educators focus on is plagiarism
Yes.
a lot. And I don't know why they
I know why.
you know, Barker, before ChatGPT, people were plagiarizing right, left, and center. So I don't know why.
No, but I mean,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I know why though. I know why.
But they're
It's
ignoring everything else.
Yeah.
no, it's because it threatens the position that teachers have in society.
Yeah.
It threatens it because it means that if students have some of these tools available to them, then it's not now about what we teach, it's about how we teach.
Yes. Yeah.
And teaching has long been based on what we teach. You know, you teach maths, you teach English. And so you could realize that there were some teachers that were far more effective, even though they were teaching the same things. You felt differently in their classrooms, and students knew it and choose those teachers.
Yeah.
So nowadays, when the first time I brought this up in my school, the first thing anyone said was plagiarism, that kids can use it to cheat. So the question is, if you're aware that this tool exists, as a teacher, what changes are you going to be making in your assessment practices so that a child can still be assessed on what you taught, but it's not possible for them to just rely solely on a tool to provide the answer? Because if they can, then it means that you're not educating them for the future. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Very good point. In fact, that's one of the topics I was going to bring up in this talk on Thursday as well. That
Yeah, please.
because you have to change your assessment approach, or you assess people, right? So basically, you can, yes, you can. And I was going to say that's a negative. That student can go to ChatGPT and write an essay and present it for them assignment. You know, that's possible. I mean, let's be honest, they can do that. But I think what you as a teacher should do now is change up the requirements in terms of how that information should be presented. Because ChatGPT is just data, you know. It just put a language thing around it and say, hey, speak it like English. But it's basically just giving you raw data. So if you as a teacher now say, hey, use storytelling more, use stuff like storytelling, you know, tell me a story around your research and ask the questions in intriguing ways, then that student will be forced to, you know, at least they would have to ask ChatGPT different questions. At least minimum they would have to ask them more intriguing question, right? They wouldn't just
And the thing about it is if you can elicit a high quality response from ChatGPT, it actually demonstrates a high level of thinking in order to craft the right, because it doesn't know what you want, so it gives you general responses. But so you're right, I mean, every teacher right now who is unaware of its full capabilities and maybe unwilling also to amend and change and, you know, enhance their practice will see it as a threat. And it will, when you see a threat, you go for its greatest strength. You tend to try and weaken it by its strength, which is its ability to respond, you know, quickly to a basic prompt. You know, but these are the things that we are facing in education. So it's that resistance to change, right? Teachers resisting change because many teachers don't want to talk about this. They just don't want to.
Yeah. So what does it say then? Go ahead, Larkland.
I was going to add that accuracy, if you really dig into ChatGPT, accuracy is not 100%. So that's another thing to pay attention to. It may not necessarily give you an accurate answer, because I've seen cases where I tell you, so somebody, you know, passed away when they didn't and stuff. So yeah, I think you need to go a little level deeper to say, hey, make sure that information is accurate as well. So you can't just take it and just cut and paste it into an essay, you know, that kind of thing.
You know, Larkland Barker wrote an article. This Miguel Barker here wrote an article what is it? It's ChatGPT you're focusing on
Yeah.
article. But
That's from about December, yeah.
yeah, I want people to understand this. And it's a very good point you made in the article, and we talk about it quite a bit, is when you mention changing assessment, Larkland, it's very important that educators actually focus on the assessment, but also, yeah, you assess while you're teaching, but also how you engage students in the learning. So what Barker here, he's modest enough, he's not mentioning it earlier when he's talking. But what he said in the article is that instead of asking students to the what of it, it's the why, right?
Yes.
It's something like that, Barker. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, I think I mentioned about I think one point I mentioned was that we need to stop focusing on getting kids to answer the question.
Yes, to answer
What we
the
need to shift, the shift that we need to do is for them to question the answer.
yes. So if you ask them to write an essay, if you ask them to do something that they have to use ChatGPT to do, just stop asking them to answer the question and provide the questions, and then asking them like, how would you answer this question?
Yeah.
Which other
Let them
way?
question,
Yeah,
let them
question.
develop
Yeah, question
questioning the answers
the
that they
answer.
get.
Questioning the answer. Question the
Yes.
answer.
Yeah.
So my question, and I'm pushing through it here, is if this is the case where if we look on the past technology devices and technology systems, and they cause a lot of changes, like a ton of changes, massive changes. Is it that this one is turning education systems or education institutions on their heads, that we are going to have to try and change our system? Or could we just change the way in terms of instruction? Because if you look on it, there are two things: the physical structure and then the instruction. Is it that we have to change all of them, Larkland?
I think over time, right? So over time, I think everything may change naturally, because we talk about the metaverse. That's a different topic, right? But but I think over time you will see change on both of them, both the physical and the instruction itself, right? So I think that's possible. But I think the opportunity we have now for all of us here is to be part of that change.
Right.
So in sitting by and let somebody else do the change, we can actually be part of it and make sure it's done responsibly. Right. Right. So I think that's the way we should look at it. That do experiments. So we all have scientific background. At work, we approach things in a very experimental approach. So before we push out changes on Google, we always do an experiment. So the same thing you learn in your degree and your doctorate about doing an experiment. I think we need to look at it that way. So we say, okay, how can ChatGPT help me with this problem?
Yeah.
Right, and then run an experiment and see if it was positive or negative. I mean, it's never negative, really. It's a learning experience.
Right.
Negative is never considered negative because you can
Yeah,
learn.
I'm glad you said that, because we never look on Barker and I. We have been doing this for a number of years now, and we never look at ChatGPT or AI systems that we look at. We never look on them negatively. We always look at, because already that the negative comes from perspective. Like, what is it taking from me? And therefore it's negative. So we never look at it in a negative light. What exactly we meet teachers from all different backgrounds, especially in the Caribbean, and some teachers have never been exposed to technology on this large scale up to the pandemic. I know they're resistant. They're very, very resistant to even take up a laptop and even touch it. They want to go back to the brick and mortar and the whiteboard or chalk with a blackboard in there. How exactly do we approach confronting that the educators who are resistant to change? I know this is a tough one, and it's sort of, it deals with human beings who have to make a living, who are struggling and so on. But how do you see us approaching that, speaking from an experimental level?
Yeah, good question. So I think it's put the user in the center. So look at the teacher as a
Right.
user of the system, right? And talk to them. You don't throw things over the fence to them and say, hey, you have to use a laptop. Sit down to them and understand their objection. So I think you have to kind of have that conversation with them, data collection, surveys, understand why do you have an issue with using technology? And based on that, now it's easy for you to introduce them to the new technology, right? To introduce them and say, hey, you can save time, you can reuse stuff, that kind of thing, right? And also you can look at outcomes as well. How will this technology help me to achieve better outcomes, right? At the end of the day, are my students going to get more A's and B's and stuff versus F's and D's, So you have to show them, you have to explain to them or make them understand that there's a benefit to it. But first you need to understand their objection, because if somebody say, I'm not going to eat something, you can't just put it down their throat. You have to understand why they don't want to eat that kind of thing, So I think so I think the whole idea of listening to them, understanding their objection, let them feel that they're part of the process. In fact, that by itself, just listening to them by itself may help, because they might feel like you're not trying to threaten them.
Yeah.
In influence, if you try to push things on people, they will resist, even if it benefits them.
Yeah.
I think one of the shift that we need to get with this technology, AI in particular, is that our teachers need to stop. One of the things that I think hampers educators in general, and this is me speaking as a school leader, is the belief that as an educator, it's a tricky one, because you are teaching in your classroom and you believe that you are doing the best job possible to any child that comes in front of you. And any acknowledgement that even last year you were not as good as this year, it's almost like you feel you have done something really bad. Because last year, the class that you taught, you didn't teach them as good as you teach this one this year. Educators find it hard to even acknowledge that fact.
True.
That if you're consistently improving, then you would be better than the year before.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a strange kind of issue that I think conflict that exists in educators' mind. And I think it's what holds us back in the sense of becoming the most effective practitioners.
Yes.
Because if you're unwilling to accept that you have grown, then when the opportunities come for growing, you're going to find it hard to accept that as well. Because you're thinking, almost, I'm doing my best job. There's nothing else that can make me better at my job. Now, there are teachers who do make that jump. And I think that's where we have the challenge with stuff like, because when I first saw ChatGPT, the only thing I thought about was to be more effective in my job. Like, how could this help me to be more effective? And it didn't take me long to realize that this is almost like having the most efficient secretary, administrative assistant, brethren, researcher, a friend who next year you can say, hey, me have a thought process, what do you think? But most teachers won't see that. I know that. They just see it as, oh, no, we need to find a way to manage these kids from cheating.
Yeah.
Or they won't be able to. So like what we did doing with writing lesson plans and so on, those sessions. Other people are using ChatGPT that didn't know it could do that. So they're not thinking about it as a self-improvement model. They're thinking about it as a threat or something they need to figure out a way as an add-on rather than a part of their entire functioning. So I think the reason why we face those challenges is around a mindset, a mind frame around these things. And it has never shifted. When computers came, when calculators came, when everybody found them as a threat, but there's a key saying that, they say AI won't replace you, Come back to your point, Larkland. AI, but AI, somebody using AI will replace you.
You've seen that statement.
Oh my God. Guys, we have to wind down on that note. That's a very good one.
Back to what Miguel is saying, I think there's a concept called augmented intelligence, right? So we talk about AI as in artificial intelligence, but there's a concept called augmented intelligence, which means if you use AI and the person, then that person is more capable, right? So
That sounds like that sounds powerful. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Larkland, you have any, this wind down here. Do you have any other benefits or comments you want to make to our, especially educators? And
So I
then,
think, yes. So I think, again, the narrative we hear, right? Because I mean, I think the narrative educators are hearing, they see AI as a negative thing because they're hearing this narrative about cheating. But as Mr. Barker is saying, that there are a lot of positives there in terms of how you can use it as a library, as as an assistant.
yeah.
So it's a concept of reframing, right? So in life, what they do is a reframe. So if people have resistance, maybe what you have to do is reframe the narrative around how people look at AI or look at technology in general.
Yeah.
And maybe that will see some progress with some of these, thing, right? So, but I think we have to listen to people as well. I think we have to listen to them, at least give them the benefit of let them hear their concerns. And then from that now, it's easier for us to give them the counter argument to say is, hey, there's a positive side to it and thing. But
Yeah.
listening is very important in the process.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Barker, we're gonna close here for now for this week. And then love the final point you make there. Somebody who is using AI will replace you, not
Yes.
just maybe not the system itself. Thank you so much. For viewers, today's Tuesday. Please remember next Thursday, this coming Thursday, we'll have a forum on AI systems, and it's geared towards educators. So look in our network for that, as well as thank you for coming on tonight, for watching. I hope you learned something, and we will see you next week with another episode of EduTALK. Thank you so much. Larkland, thank you. Barker, enjoy your week.
Nice to meet you, Larkland. Yeah.
Yeah, nice meeting you, Barker. Yes,
You're gonna see more of him, Barker. You're gonna see a lot more.
yeah.
Very,
man,
very.
when you're ready, man.
Yeah.
Some be a good conversation as well.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, as I said, I'm very interested in. Are you still recording or you stop recording?
Yeah, I'm still recording.
Oh, okay. No, I think I'm very interested into seeing how we can help education to, advance in that sense of the word.
Yeah.
Good way. Especially
Yeah.
helping the Caribbean. Caribbeans suffer. They're losing teachers because obviously you guys in the UK and the US is taking away some of the good teachers. So how do you ensure that it doesn't really cause, they use the word learning loss, but you want to make sure they don't get into that too much, so I'm very much interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, man, there's a lot there.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody. Talk to you soon. Larkland, we'll talk. Barker, see you.
Take
See you
care.
soon. Yes. Take care, everybody. Bye. Thank you.